In Chapter 5, your book talks about juvenile victims, and it starts with a general introduction to the topic of juvenile victims. Juvenile victims are children who are abused, neglected, and endangered. And your book does a really nice job with this topic. It's just that it gives you a lot of data, and so you really have to kind of listen and read hard. So I wanted to point out just a little bit of the information about missing and exploited children. When you're talking about missing and exploited children, remember that the total children that are missing are not necessarily missing for a long time. And sometimes it's benign. They just miss their connection. They don't know they're getting out of school early, or the parent has to work over, and so they miss a phone call and take a bus home when they were supposed to go somewhere else. There's a lot of those kinds of incidents that happen and could be reported even though they're resolved rather quickly. So that number can perhaps be not considered so startling, but the involuntary missing, which is the lost or injured, or sometimes either too young to know how to get home, or mentally handicapped and not able to get home. 198,300 annually. That's a little scary. Um, but not anything compared to the runaway throwaway, 1,682,900. That's just huge. And they have various reasons for running away or being thrown out. And some of the runaways actually have good reasons to run away, either because of physical or sexual abuse in the home. Not all of these runaway throwaways are out wandering the streets. Some of them have friends or relatives that they're actually staying with. And sometimes it's kind of an impulse thing. Um, Sometimes because they're angry at their parents or their siblings. When one of my daughters was 8, she went to visit a friend, and the friend got mad at the parents, decided they were abusing her, and decided to run away. And so my daughter said, "Gee, I'll go with you. You shouldn't be alone." So they ran away. And it was a great gesture of friendship, but unfortunately it resulted in my daughter being grounded for a month. And interestingly enough, the abused friend was only grounded for a couple of days. And we probably wouldn't have punished our daughter so harshly because it was kind of funny. But their runaway supplies included a handgun that belonged to the other child's parents. So that was pretty serious. And their great runaway adventure only lasted a little over an hour, since they took the little red wagon to haul all of their belongings and their supplies. You know, they had to have snacks for their runaway. And that meant they had to stay on a road, and since we lived in a very rural area, there was only a couple of roads, so the other family had actually found them before we even realized there was a problem, since they were at her house. But had we realized and called the police, they could have been counted as missing, even though they were only gone a little over an hour. And the reason why we consider a child missing in such a short amount of time will be a lot clearer when we look at the timelines on the abductions. So even though they were under 14, they would not have been considered a runaway until they had been gone overnight. And if a child is 15 or older, then they have to be gone more than 2 nights without permission before they're considered a runaway. And a throwaway incident occurs when a child is asked or told to leave home by a parent or other household adult, and no adequate alternative care is arranged for the child. Or if a child that's away from home is prevented from returning to the home by a parent or other household adult, and no adequate care is arranged for the child. Most of this population is youth aged 15 to 17, like 2/3 of the youth with runaway throwaway episodes during the year that this study was done. And we think there may be some good news in that there's some suggestive evidence that from 1988 to 1999,